Come on. Good morning. Welcome to Entrepreneurial Live Interviews with Connie Fuksa. I try to bring you guys interviews from people that have a story to tell. I really want to share stories from entrepreneurs that have figured out how to take something that came to them that was a passion. They figured out this was something they really wanted to do and change the world, or they found a pain point that they really wanted to fix, and they decided to turn it into a business. And how they made that into that business is a story that you really want to hear. But not only that, these entrepreneurs not only have figured out how to make that business into a successful business, fix pain points for people, but they're figuring it out every single day. Struggles happen every day in business. And so my purpose and my goal for doing these interviews with you is to share those entrepreneurs with you, share their stories, and help you understand that you too can do this, and it's okay to stumble. We all have mud puddles, detours, roadblocks. And today I have the distinct honor of introducing you to a lady that I just very recently met. I'm so excited for her to share her story with you because it is really cool and so important, especially in today's world and all the things that we have going on that we're all struggling with. So today I have the distinct honor of introducing you to Dr. Jenifer Price. Dr. Jen, thanks so much for being with us today.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here today, Connie.
Absolutely. I am thrilled to have you. So, Dr. Jen, would you please tell us about you? Share with our audience who you are. Where did you come from? How did you get to where you are today? And where is that you are today? What are you doing?
Sure. Well, my name is Dr. Jen Price, and I am a life and career coach. I work primarily with teenagers and young adults. My background is in education and counseling for the past 20 plus years. I love what I do. I'm very passionate about what I do. It doesn't feel like work to me. I feel like my career picked me, essentially. And if you look at my history, my story, really it comes from a place of resiliency, a place of just forging forward, even when things were difficult. I grew up in a single parent home, and my dad actually raised me. He raised me and my three younger sisters after my mom passed away when I was 7. And so we had a journey with him, watching him learn how to cook and clean and try to figure out how to comb our hair, which was a lot of fun. But I grew up with a father who was very supportive, who believed in the power of education. He pushed us to excel and be involved in extracurricular activities and serve in the community. He also served in the community. He was a really good man. So I feel very blessed to have had that kind of upbringing. But my story begins, I think, when I was told what I couldn't do. Now, I mentioned my dad told me that the possibilities were limitless, but there was a conversation that I had with someone. I shared something from my heart. I knew I was going to college because that was my father's expectation. We all knew college was the next step. And so in my heart, I wanted to go on a full scholarship. Now, my dad was working class, and so I really didn't know how we would pay for school, but I knew school was the next step. College, 4-year degree, next step. Didn't know how we were going to pay for it, so I decided, well, scholarships are available. Let me start working for those now. And so my story begins with all the Saturdays that I spent going to the public library. Now, I love to read, and so my dad would take us to the library, and I decided to start looking for scholarships when I was in 7th grade. I know that's a little unusual for a 7th grader to work towards their future, but I was very driven, very motivated, and someone made the mistake of telling me that it wasn't possible. He told me that it was not possible to go to school on a full scholarship. And that was the wrong thing to tell me at the time. And so I started my journey in 7th grade, spending Saturdays looking through guidebooks, looking up scholarship foundations, asking my dad for a stamp, and writing letters to these foundations, asking them for a copy of their application. I looked at the applications to see what they were looking for. They were looking for students who made good grades in school, who were involved in their community, serving others, who were also actively involved in clubs. And so I looked at all of that and realized, well, this is what I need to do. So essentially, I was coming up with my plan to be able to go to college and to pay for it using these scholarship applications. And fast forward, into high school, I did end up applying for many, many scholarships. And one of my favorite stories that I'd like to share with you all is just, you do what you can. And so I had my little part-time job in addition to my extracurricular activities, running track and serving in the community and volunteering at the church and a myriad of other clubs and organizations. And so from my part-time job, I saved up my money to buy an electric typewriter. Now, I know we have computers nowadays, but this is kind of dating me a little bit. Let you know how old I am. But I saved up my money from my part-time job and bought an electric typewriter so that I could type up scholarship applications. And so that's what I would do after I finished all my homework late into the night, because I was in a lot of AP classes, advanced placement courses, and studying really hard. And it was just very challenging academically. But I would stay up to all hours of the night applying for scholarships consistently. Now, note the word I'm using, consistently. I did it consistently. And thankfully, it paid off to the tune of me being able to go to the University of Texas at Austin, hook 'em horns. I'm a Longhorn. Have to plug them. So I earned my bachelor's degree and my master's degree on full academic scholarship. And so I'm very thankful to have had the opportunity to graduate without the burden of debt that many students and families face. But it started when I was in 7th grade. And so I mentioned that story just because it's about persistence, about just resiliency, and just, not letting someone tell you what you cannot do. Now, the funny thing about that story is it also laid the foundation for what I do today as a life and career coach that focuses on helping teenagers and young adults make decisions about their career and make decisions about college. Because I was considered a first generation student. Like I mentioned, my dad was working class, worked really hard, to provide for us, and did a great job. And so what I learned from all of that is just that you have to be determined to do whatever you need to do to make your dream come to pass. And so the things that I did, it ended up influencing what I do today as a college and career coach, helping students with their journeys, just figuring out how to navigate the process. I mean, it's really complicated now. It's not just one application, a one-page application anymore. It's multiple pages, multiple essays in some cases. And so the work that I did for myself, I essentially ended up delving deeper into those areas and becoming a professional in that field. But there was a detour. I took a detour for some years when I thought I wanted to be a pharmacy major, and I really chose it for the wrong reason, more so for the prestige and the income associated with it. But ultimately, I made a decision based on my heart. Mm-hmm. That's an important lesson as well. When making a decision, you really do want to follow your heart. And I know it's a scary thing to do, and it's risky to do. And so I would encourage people to, search your heart. And during these times with, COVID-19, we've kind of had to slow down. The pace we've had to slow down, not because we necessarily want to, but we have to, and we're at home more, and we have more time on our hands. And this is a great time to reflect, to consider what is it that sets your heart on fire? What is it that doesn't feel like work for you? And start making those baby steps in that direction, even if it's as small as, I'm going to set aside a few dollars here and there, and I'll take this course on marketing, or this course on putting together a website, or learn about business entities, or just do an assessment of what your skill set is so that you can determine what you might want to do next. So those are some things I want to share about my background. First generation college student from a single parent home who was told what I couldn't do. And that motivated me because I knew that I really had no limits, because I was taught that by my father. And that when you're determined to do something, you just keep working at it. Even if sometimes you win just by virtue of not quitting.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so many good, amazing pieces to this, Dr. Jen. So when you and I talked, I didn't know about your dad and his wonderful addition to, or foundation of your life. I mean, here's a single dad who is now has to raise 3 young ladies, and probably has no idea how to do hair and do showers with ladies. It would have been totally different if he had 3 boys. So that's a challenge in itself. But that started your foundation for learning about how nothing is impossible, right? I mean, you lost your mom very early. Your dad is figuring out how to do it, and he's doing it. And you turned out to be an amazing lady because of that foundation. So that's really cool. And thank you very much for sharing that with us. That's really personal and private. And so that was really cool. But there's some things that I was sitting here writing notes about. And of course, I have a whole bunch of notes already. But so this is so powerful. So someone told you no, and you said, oh, yes. And so that's where I really want to start, because I feel like sometimes people have a great idea or have a plan and someone tells them they can't do something. And so your natural reaction was to say, oh, yes, I can. And then jump in at 7th grade and start figuring out what was needed in these applications, which is stunning, because most people don't even begin to think about those things until, first of all, at least in high school, but maybe not even until 10th or 11th grade, for gosh sake, right? So tell us a little bit more about that drive and determination. Obviously, that is a foundation for your life as well.
Well, I mean, it really, one of the life lessons that I would say comes out of this is you sometimes have to start early, and you taking those steps. And sometimes, it may be difficult. You may have a lot of other priorities, but do something every day in the direction of your dreams, what's in your heart to do. And so it could be, for those of you who have college, maybe your son or daughter has some aspirations for college. It may start with, let's look at the local college and see what opportunities are available here. Now, I know that right now, with the current uncertain times and the situation we have right now, virtual tours may be a better option to take advantage of college, but start exploring the opportunities. First of all, you have to be able to see yourself going. You have to be able to say, I see this for me. This is a possibility for me. You have to believe that. And you may not know all the details as to how you'll get there, but then understand, well, what do I need to get to where I'm going? And so start digging deep into that. And so that's one of the things I did. I mean, my formal training in college was as a social worker. And so my background is in education and counseling. That is far from being an entrepreneur. And let me just say, I didn't even plan to be a business owner or an entrepreneur. I planned on, I just wanted to, my whole motivation was helping people.
That's
I wanted to make a difference in life. And so the reason I ended up being a business owner is because while I was in the education system, I started seeing needs. So in the school system, you see that the students have, the counselors have caseloads of over 500 students to one. And so the question kind of comes up, well, how can you really get to know a student and hear what's in their heart, hear what their passions are, and help them come up with a personalized plan that they can execute on to help them realize their dream? That's a very difficult thing to do. And as a counselor type, as an educator, you go into that field because you want to make a difference. But by virtue of the numbers, it's hard to have those intimate conversations with the student in order to help them execute on that plan. And so that was part of how I ended up starting my own business. I saw that there was a need. And that's another reason right there. Look around you. I mean, you want to assess your skill set and your abilities and what sets your heart on fire, but also what are the needs? And really having a business is just really about meeting a need. And
you hit on two different things that I really wanted to touch on. Number one, most children who go to, young adults that go to college don't come out of college with what they went to college for. And that obviously you really hit on a point there, because I think some of that obviously is they're growing and their interests are changing and things of that nature. But that's really an important point, that the counselors are so stretched, so thin. There's no way to direct those young people really, really importantly, really fine laser focused, because there's just not enough time in the counselor's day, in their brain, in their space to make sure that each one of those people get that individualized attention. So that's where your expertise really comes in to fine tune those things. And I'm sure that the percentages of people that come out of the college situation after working with someone with your expertise is much more on point with where they wanted to be, what really sets our heart on fire, as you explained. And I love that analogy. But I wanted to talk for a second about the entrepreneurial side too, because I think this is so interesting listening to your background, because your background is education. Your background is what is, you were talking about more of the social working kind of scenario, counselor kind of scenario. And you become an entrepreneur and people say, well, I would never own a business. I mean, that's not what I want to do. But you saw that opportunity. You saw the pain point, really is what you saw as the pain point. And you made that pain point. You said the only way for me to work that pain point is for me to do it on my own, not to through a system, not through a business, somebody else's business, but for me to do it on my own. So let's talk about that, because there had to be a point where you said, all right, this is the way I'm going to have to do it. I don't know anything about being a business owner, but this is what I'm going to have to do. Talk to us a little bit about that, because that's intriguing.
Sure. And one of the things I didn't mention is my vision for helping people. I also learned a little bit about entrepreneurship when I was in college. I actually had a chance to take a self-directed study course with a professor who taught in sociology, which is what my undergraduate degree is in, and also the business school. And so one of the projects for my class, or the capstone project for that class, was to essentially not really write a business plan, but essentially think through, how you could use your skill set to make an impact and as a business owner. And so I had a little bit of that as a foundation in that one course, and I actually kept that. And it's funny because a lot of the things that I came up with, I actually ended up executing on in terms of my own private practice. But I also realized what I didn't know. I mean, you learn how to do counseling, you work with, people one-on-one, and you help them. But in terms of, what business structure is appropriate, how do you get the word out about what you do? And, how do you manage the money associated with having a business? And so I ended up taking courses through the Small Business Association. We had some different nonprofits in the area that helped business owners. And so they would have like lunch and learns or evening sessions that I would attend. And many times they were free or low cost. And then there was also a program that was available through some universities that I ended up participating in for women. And I went through a more formalized program that taught me more about entrepreneurship. And I had a cohort of female peers who were aspiring business owners, and we learned from one another and other people that they brought in. And so sometimes you have to figure out, well, what is it that I need to know, and how do I learn that information? Obviously, I like to read, and so I did a lot of reading as well. But even just seeking out training so that I can figure out, okay, well, what are my services? And then, well, what is the price point for my services? Well, learning about finding out what the competitive landscape looked like, and what my competition was charging, and based on my years of experience, what is an appropriate fee, and how do I distinguish my business from other people locally? And so what is my niche? What is my market? And so having to ask yourself a bazillion questions even before you hang out that shingle. And in some cases, you also don't want to get stuck with all of the questions. And at some point, you have to step out and do. And it's terrifying. And when you first start, you may not charge the right rate.
Of course.
And you don't know what you're doing. Like when I first started, I was driving to families' homes to do advising with them. And then over time, I started meeting them up in local coffee shops. And then over time, I ended up having like an office share with another therapist. And ultimately, I ended up landing in my own office. But it was a journey. You just start where you are and with the resources that you have. And I had some personal spending money, about $100 a month, that I could just do whatever I wanted to with. And so I would use that personal spending money each month and invest in myself and invest in my dream. And so you just start where you are, and you take baby steps. You just keep that forward momentum no matter how small the step is.
So many takeaways right now, and I just trying to keep up with so many of them. But so one of the things you said is you took the extra $100 that you had and you reinvested in yourself, which totally makes sense because this is also the lady who took money that she earned on a little side job and bought a typewriter so she could do college applications. So I love that takeaway because one thing that people don't see is, when you start making money, you have to put money back in your business. And in your case, yourself, to grow that business. So you have to continue to invest in that business for it to continue to thrive. So I love that takeaway. I love the takeaway that you talked about finding your niche. And I want to come back to that in a second, because you and I talked a little bit off screen about being able to explain to people what it is exactly that you do when you meet somebody for the first time. And so I want to talk about that for a second, because I think that's so very important. People don't realize that there may be 1,000 real estate agents. There may be 10,000 career coaches, but every single one is different, and there's a reason for that. And so we want to talk about that for a second. But I want to go back into first, when you talked about being an entrepreneur and you shared two things that I think is so important, and it's such a theme through this entrepreneurial interview series. One, that you invested in yourself by searching out free and very low cost tools to educate yourself about all the things that you didn't know about starting a business, because that wasn't your passion. That wasn't where you were going. That's not what you went to school for. So you found SBA had some free classes. You found that there was nonprofits offering information. And so I love that, that you shared that with us, because talk just for a second about all the things that you had no idea that you didn't know. Obviously, a whole bunch of them, but throwing out a few of them, because I think that's the part that gets really scary. Like, as soon as somebody jumps into this arena, they go, oh my gosh, there's all these things. Okay, never mind, I can't do it. And I don't want people to think that. I want them to know that everybody sees this.
I think the first thing that's important is to figure out what it is what need do you want to meet? Are you qualified? Are you skilled to meet? And so, I definitely spent some time on assessing my abilities, looking at my transferable skills. And fortunately for me, it was direct application of what I was already doing in education and counseling. And so it was a matter of, okay, I already have the skill set to advise students. I already know how to build rapport with students and families. Check. I know how to do that. But how do I reach the families? That was a huge question mark for me. And so I did a lot of thought in terms of, well, how can I build a pipeline? How can I put what I do out there? And so what I ultimately did was, because I didn't have a lot of money for advertising, I started with more things related to PR, or things that didn't cost a lot in terms of getting the word out about what I do. And something that I can do is talk. I'm a talker. And so one of the things that I did to build my pipeline was I started offering workshops, and I started offering seminars to students and parents, and I offered them through the local university and through the actual K through 12 system. They had something called community education programs. And so I would basically write up a description for the equivalent of a short class, maybe 90 minutes or a workshop or seminar, and I would present a topic such as how to prepare your middle schooler for college. And so what that did for me is that got my name out there in the community, and also established myself as an expert related to that field. And it gave me the opportunity to meet families and outside of the school setting. And so what that did for me initially, one of my first classes, I only had like 3 people that showed up in my class. And that's a little discouraging, but you have to start somewhere. And the funny thing about that class, with only 3 people, one of the people that was in that class was a mom who was a neuropsychologist, and she had a private practice that was very prominent in my city and resulted in referrals for decades.
Wow, that's fantastic. You never know who you're talking to.
Right. And
that's
so
fantastic. That is fantastic. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was this whole theory of collaborating. One of the groups that you were in, you said there was other female entrepreneurs that, were on a similar level as you, and you guys are, just think tanking it together. That's one thing that I think in the entrepreneurial world is a little bit lonely, because, we're doing it on our own and we're expected to know what we're doing. or at least that's what we think, right? And so we're supposed to be like this perfect magic and we should know it all. And we're very vulnerable if we share that we don't know it. And so that's one thing that I like to dispel when we're talking in these interviews. And you bring it up so succinctly by saying that you collaborated with other ladies that were in similar levels or similar situations as you. So talk to us about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, one of the things that I did was I researched, what are the courses that are available, whether it's through the city or if it's through the state or nonprofits. And so I found a program called Activate that was for women. And you actually had to apply to be a part of the program. We would meet every week and we would have various speakers come in and teach us about, business entity. We talk about marketing. We talk about PR. We would talk about contracts and the legal side of having a business. And so it was a formalized program, and there was also accountability too. And so you had a place that you needed to be every week, and you had peers that you wanted to show up for. And so it was a great way to not go it alone. And now that happened a little bit later in my entrepreneurial journey. I also joined a professional association. That's another great way to meet other people. And I'm a member of IECA, which is the premier association for independent college counselors. It's very selective to be a member of that association. You have to have a certain level of education, number of years experience. You also have to go out and visit colleges, and it's documented. For example, I visited over 200 colleges, and the expectation, if you're a part of this professional association, is that you're out visiting the campuses and staying current with what's happening in admissions and other people who are also working independently and not necessarily just for a school. And so having other peers who are stepping out into the same field has been an invaluable resource. And we have a listserv. And so anytime I get stuck or have a question, I can post it. I meet people at the conferences. We have a local association. We have local association meetings, which has been wonderful, especially with everyone being isolated. We're using Zoom to keep in touch and talk about all the bazillion changes that are happening in education. Like almost every day, are the colleges opening? What would that look like? The students returning to campus. There's so many changes.
That's interesting. Well, that what's really cool is you're sharing that, all of those pieces. This sounds like a really neat program, the Activate program for someone getting started. But I love the other takeaways, joining an association that's specific for your industry, because then you can collaborate with other people that have similar questions, concerns, struggles, detours, and you're able to find a connection with those people and figure out how to do that. And it takes you off of that vulnerability ledge, right? So because everything you see, well, somebody else has that exact same problem. I'm not making a mistake here. I'm actually doing that correctly. So I think that's really important. So let's talk just for a second about the niche conversation, because I promised we would come back to that. But, as you said, there's an association for college career coaches. So obviously there's a bunch of them across the country. So how did you determine that where that is, how that you were different and how you were going to share your differences with others?
Well, sure. And one of the things that you can do is look at who first of all, I had to identify the space that I was in. What is it called? What is it labeled? And then who is doing that kind of work already in my city? And I also reached out and tried to do some information interviews with people who were already where I wanted to be. And so understanding, okay, well, this person focuses on this aspect of college advising, and this person focuses on that aspect. And so what is my focus? And so my niche is actually career counseling. I offer career testing, and most of the people in my area, they don't touch that area. I mean, there is career counseling, career testing available to adults traditionally, but teenagers, young adults, not really so many that focus on that area. And because so many colleges are now asking students to have a clear idea of what their major is, it's determining in many ways if they should even apply to a particular university or not. And so that is becoming even more important for them to know on the front end. And so I work with my students on the front end, identifying, what makes sense for them to study. And when they're in college, what kind of career is a good fit for them based on their interests, their abilities, their personality. And so then that influences and shapes the list that we build together, because certain colleges are known for engineering programs, or maybe they're more known for art. And so that also shapes the college list that I ultimately developed for the families. And that college list is probably one of the most powerful ways to control the cost of an education, because if you know prior to applying for a college how they award financial aid or scholarships, and you apply to institutions that benefit your family's financial situation, you're able to potentially go for tens of thousands of dollars less just than someone who would just randomly apply to that college. And so the students that I work with, they are able to go to a school, and because they have the focus in terms of what makes sense for me, they're able to go to school and graduate in closer to 4 years as opposed to 5 or 6 years with that first bachelor's degree, which saves their family money. They're not changing their majors multiple times. The college has their major. And then they also have opportunities to secure internships when they're in college. So then when they are ready to graduate, they are able to go directly into their field, or in some cases have a job before they even graduate. And so what's rewarding to me is many of my past clients are connections with me on LinkedIn. And so I get to see how they're doing 10, 15 years later, and remember those conversations we had when they were a junior, when they were a senior, and now they're like, oh, I have my own business, Dr. Price, and I'm married now and I have a family, and this is what I'm doing professionally. I just got this license. Oh, I just changed careers. And so it's really a rewarding thing that I do because I've done this for so long. I get to see that the process that I take families through one-on-one, it actually has worked because they're still in the same fields today and they're happy and they're thriving.
That's fantastic. So Dr. Price, on as we wind up a little bit, can you tell me, after all of these different experiences, both personally and professionally, what is a piece of advice you would give someone that's jumping into the entrepreneurial arena or thinking, wow, they found, something that they really see an opportunity or a pain point that they want to fix? But what is that one piece of advice that you say they've got to know?
Don't give up. Sometimes you'll have detours, and there might be times where it's more advantageous for you to take a position with the organization or a company to add to your skill set, add to your toolbox, and that's okay. But still continue pursuing what's in your heart, even if it's part-time or on the side. Keep making steps. Keep taking those baby steps towards doing what's truly in your heart. I mean, I know sometimes people think, oh, well, I have this dream. I need to quit my job and do my dream full time. Not necessarily. You still have to eat and pay bills. I mean, there does come a critical time that you might have to say, my side hustle or my business that I have on the side is the income is starting to exceed what I'm earning full time, or because of the time commitments required, I may have to make that tough decision after I've stored up some resources to be able to live on while I'm transitioning. But, don't give up, and just start taking those baby steps. Just do something a little bit every day, even if it's as simple as, I need to figure out where I'm gonna get my business cards from, or I need to find someone on Fiverr to design my business card. Okay, now I need to go print the business card. Okay, I have a business card. That's great. Now where will I do my work? So they're
fantastic. Just don't give up. Whatever it is, don't give up. That's fantastic. So Dr. Jen, if somebody wants to reach out to you after today because they want to work with you or they want to ask you some questions based on what we've talked about, how can people find you after today?
Well, I am on social media. My handle is at Dr. Jen Price. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. If you want to, if you're interested in even doing some advising with me, you can give me a shout out at drjenprice@gmail.com. I will also at the end of this podcast provide some website addresses for you to access me if you want to book a one-on-one, a free 15-minute call with me and tell me about your needs to determine how I might be able to best serve you.
Excellent. That's fantastic. And as we've talked before, guys, anybody who is listening and wants to reach out to Dr. Jen, she's going to post some stuff in the comment bar underneath after we're done on the live broadcast on Facebook. And then from there, we will incorporate that in all of the additional postings that we do. So after today, we are going to post her information on Facebook, and then it'll be on YouTube. Obviously, we're streaming live on YouTube as well, so it'll be posted there. Then we will be posting it on LinkedIn as well, both within the next couple of days, and also we will be doing an article again, probably in a couple of weeks with Dr. Jen. Dr. Jen, I can't thank you enough. This has been a phenomenal story with so many great takeaways, so much good information. And if somebody didn't get some good stuff out of this, then they just don't get this whole series, because you embodied everything that we've been trying to share through this series on your interview. And I really appreciate your time so very much today.
Well, thank you for having me, Connie. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, guys, if you want to check out a replay of this or any other interview that we've been doing in this series, please go back and check on my YouTube channel, Connie Fuksa. You can subscribe to that YouTube channel, because that will give you access to all the previous interviews, but it'll also give you access to things coming up. It'll give you some reminders. So that's really important to do. Also, if you want to talk more about being able to share your story, as Dr. Jen has, or if you want to talk about how we can expose your expertise to all of the people that you want to work with, I would love to talk to you about doing that. You can reach me at conniefuksa.com, which is my website. There's lots of good resources there and good ways to get in touch with me as well. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Stay tuned again for our next Entrepreneurial Live interview with Connie Fuksa. Today, it's been with Dr. Jen Price, and I hope you guys really enjoyed, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye-bye, everybody.